Welcome to another game of Trap Chess. Today we are going to be playing Chaos Chess. Chaos Chess is a game mode where all of the landmines are hidden in the board randomly. Either side can lose a piece to a landmine, no matter what the color of the landmine is. Here you can see white loses the first piece to a bomb pawn on c4. The square is then replaced with a blank. With Chaos Chess as a game mode, you can play chess against yourself. Normally you can't play chess against yourself because you know exactly what you're thinking. However, because there are so many landmines hidden in the board for Chaos Chess, there are more trap activations. Every time a trap activates, you get a brand new board position that opens up new strategies. This means that even if you were planning something, the trap will derail your plans, and now you have the opportunity to think of a new strategy with the new board position. If you haven't played chess for a while, this is a great way to help sharpen your skills. I would recommend not making any high-stakes bets against yourself when you play this way, unless you're looking forward to losing and shaving your head. It's very difficult to beat yourself in chess. Here Black moves their pawn to g5, but unfortunately they encountered a bomb pawn and lost their pawn. They were trying to prevent White from moving their pawn up to g5, but now that the trap activated, White can just move there. If Black had made a different move, White would have ended up losing their pawn to the trap on that square. However, Black then wouldn't have their rook opened up on the h-file to come down whenever they want. In a lot of instances, losing a piece to a trap can be detrimental. However, it does open up X-ray attacks, so sometimes that can be used to your advantage, even if it was your piece that was lost to the trap. That's why it's important before making your move to consider the possibilities. You can unveil new strategies while playing the game, or you can set up strategies before the game begins. Unfortunately, in Chaos Chess mode, you can't really set up strategies before the game begins because the traps are placed randomly. That does put an emphasis on remembering where certain traps are, since every time you move to a square you get to look underneath. You may find traps that don't affect your chess pieces. You can use that to your advantage to trick your opponent to move their pieces there to lose them, or to help you set up strategies for X-ray attacks. You can see on e4 that there's a bomb queen trap. White moved their knight there, so the knight is unaffected by the bomb queen trap on e4, but remembering that may help them set up a trap for Black later to put their queen there and lose it. Both sides in the game appear to be playing very defensively, with Black being offensive on this move, moving their bishop to h3. Their bishop is protected by the rook on h8, so that's totally fine. They can take back now that the white bishop has taken theirs. So now the black rook is much closer to the white king. Though I may have liked to see the black rook cover the g-file instead, so that the white rook would have a more difficult time getting out. Now that the black king has moved, they're no longer able to castle. Castling isn't required when you play chess, though a lot of people like to do it. It is a very strong move though. The rook starts in the corner of the chessboard, so the first move the rook makes will always be on the side of the chessboard or in the corner. Castling is a great way to move your rook further towards the center of the board so it can cover more squares and you can get it into the game while also moving your king out of the way, potentially protecting it. I say potentially because moving a king towards the corner of the board gives it less squares that it can move to if it's under attack. White now is trying to form and launch an attack on the black king. However, it's going to be difficult for white to break through. There are two knights, two rooks, and a queen all in that general area surrounding the king. They're covering a lot of squares that can be used to protect the king, so white may need more attackers. In chess, it's not just about how many attackers you have when you're going to launch an attack. It's also about their positioning and the squares they hit versus the squares your opponent can't hit and your opponent's positioning. That's what makes chess such a great game. It requires great planning to execute your strategies effectively. This is a great move by Black. It limits the squares that White can move their queen to. It looks like White blundered though. They did have the e5 square available for their queen, but They didn't see it, so now they've lost their queen. If they had moved to the e5 square though, then black would have to run with their queen or decide if they wanted to do a trade, and both players would have lost their queens. That doesn't mean now that white is out of the game. The chessboard is still full of traps. A single trap activation can turn the game around for a player. That's why all of the chess games on this channel are played to the end. A series of trap activations could easily lead to a game becoming a draw, even if it looked like there was no hope for one player. White started a push with their pawn on the h-file. It looks like they're trying to set up to potentially turn it into a queen later in the game. It's very unlikely that their opponent will let them do that though. Even though all the landmines are laid in the chessboard, we haven't had a trap activation in over 4 minutes. That's the cool part about playing trap chess. Every single game is unique. When you play a lot of chess, the game may not feel unique until you get several moves in. That's a possibility when playing trap chess, but the traps decrease the likelihood of that happening. Playing a lot may lead to recognizing patterns though, just like when you play a lot of regular chess. Black is starting to look for a checkmate here, and we have another trap activation on the white knight. That's going to be very detrimental for white, considering that knight was needed to protect them from black's queen. That doesn't mean white is out of the game yet. A single trap can turn things around. Black is applying even more pressure with their knight, but a bomb knight is hidden under the e3 square and they lose their knight. This may be the start of a comeback for white, so white decides to protect the d3 pawn a little bit more. Then black loses another piece to a trap. This time it was a pawn though, so it's not as detrimental as losing the knight. White is starting to push up on the h-file. It looks like they want to make a run for that queen. However, they're going to have a hard time doing it with black taking the d3 pawn. White has to address this, and they opt to take it with one of their rooks. Black will have to move their queen to protect it. Pinning the rook on e4 looks like a great plan, but there's a bomb queen there. Now white has the advantage. Because of the bomb queen, now the white rook isn't pinned, so it can take the black rook for free. Prior to those trap activations, if we were playing normal chess and you asked me if I thought white could win, I would quote my wife and say, no. That quote comes from when I asked her if she wanted to see the new Jason Statham movie in theaters. The only thing the black king can really do at this point is chase the rooks around. Unless white hits 2 rook traps and they lose their pawn that they're trying to promote on the h-file, I see this as a win for white. I don't see a way that black can do anything except to go for a draw. When you get to the endgame, it's a good idea to use your king as a scout. Your king is immune to all traps on the board because there isn't a king trap. This means you could use the king to find the locations of traps that would prevent you from winning the game. White is promoting their pawn and they opt to check the square before they move the pawn there, leading to them losing the pawn before it gets promoted to a queen. If they had checked after, they would have had their queen. Here though, it looks like there's not very many moves left before checkmate. Black is being forced into an inescapable position, and white can now move to a7, and that's checkmate. Thank you for watching.